I'll open the Milton Planning Board of July 16, 2019. First on the agenda is public comment. If the public has any comments about anything but when it's on the agenda.
It's really hot out.
Excuse me?
That's my comment. It's really hot out.
Yeah. That's it from the public. Not seeing or hearing any, I'll move on to the next, which is Capital Improvement Program, Project Submittals and Discussion. Presentation by Town Administrator, DPW, Recreation, Water Precinct, Sewer Documents to review CIP request, review Master Plan Tech Tie-In Matrix, begin rating using Form Ds. Okay. So it says the first one here is Town Administrator.
Well, good evening, everybody. I was informed about this last week, and I have been working today on the technology fund piece of it. And I don't even know if I want to give this to you because it's, but I will, and I'll go through and let you know. At least tell you about the projects. I may have to give you a revised sheet because there are a couple of things in there that are inconsistent, but I will point those out to you. What you see up at the top is a listing of the PCs that we have between Town Hall. There are a couple of them at the Highway Department. I think only one of those is actually valid. I didn't really do anything with that until 2021. And then we have Recreation Department with a couple of them. And all of these computers, the ones that are light highlighted are 5 years old. And the one that is dark is older than 5 years old, but we determined that that one is actually gone. So, just so you know, I mistakenly set off the fire alarm before this meeting, so I didn't get a chance to actually go through and finish this. So I'm going to do the best I can to...
Town technology, huh?
Yeah, the fire alarm is right next to my desk, and I tripped and caught myself on it and set off that, and boy, it was all story. But anyway, so in 2019, if you look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there are actually 5 computers that would need to be replaced at $900 each, so that would be a $4,500 number. So, and then in looking at the town hall alarm system, not the fire alarm system, because that works really well, but the security system itself, we've been having trouble with the phone lines and not knowing exactly what the nature of the problem is yet. In talking with our alarm system folks, they said that perhaps putting a wireless unit in there so that they would always have access that way would be one way to resolve the issue. But I put $3,000 in there because that's what the cost of that would be. But it may actually be as simple as repairing the phone lines. But I have to get more information about that. So, you know, I'm not really sure what you want to do with this tonight. I can introduce it to you, but I'm hoping I can come back with a little bit better job on this because I did do this on short notice, just so you know. And looking at that, I think the $8,400 number that I've got there, if you look in the bottom where it says 2019, 7 replacements, actually 5 based on the numbers that we just talked about, at $4,500 plus the $3,000 would be the $7,500 needed. The current balance is $13,997, and the balance after that deduction is probably going to be around $6,500. And if you look at the next row down at the bottom where it says 2020, the phone system here is an old system. We've had several problems with it just in the short 2 months that I've been here. I got an approximate figure from one vendor. I think the chief is going to be looking at his phone system as well. And so on the week of August 5th, I'm hoping to set up a couple of of vendors to go through this building and also the police department to get some, pricing on the phone systems in both buildings. And again, I've been here, Monday was my 2-month anniversary here, or month anniversary, and but these are the issues that have cropped up. So I'm just trying to give you a good idea of what I think we may be having to address over the next 2 to 3 years. So in 2020, in looking at phone system, that was about a $6,000 figure. And that was based on a conversation I had with one vendor that I worked with in Raymond, but I know that there are others that we need to talk to. And then there were 6 additional desktop replacements there. I used the $900 a piece, but I used a 3% escalator to give you $5,562. And then the server replacement itself is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $4,000. So that gives a $15,000 amount required for the following year. And if you have $6,500 left over after deducting this year's, it looks like approximately about a $9,000 amount that we need to appropriate to meet the needs for next year. And then the following year, there are 2 computer replacements left, and then you have to start the cycle all over again for the next 5-year set of replacements. So I think in looking at that, I'd be looking at a $10,000 request for the Technology Capital Reserve Fund this year, and the following year probably down to $6,000 to $8,000. And again, I can take these figures and work with them more and give you a better spreadsheet next year. But I think, in these years, you're within a couple of $1,000s per year on these things.
Can I ask a question,
Yes.
please?
Yeah.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
It's pertaining to this. Does this include the hardware, software, and tech support and everything?
The tech support's operating. We have a contract with Backday Computers for, I believe we pay them $960 a month for the support that we get from them. And that's in the operating budget, the contracts line of the town administration budget.
Okay, thank you.
As far as the software is concerned, that does, and one of the discussions I need to have with the selectmen is whether we continue to, purchase software packages with the computers that are, installed at the factory, and then, or to go to Office 365, which is an online cloud-based service that Microsoft offers. But they also offer the hard installs on your computers for that.
Mm-hmm.
That's more money than what the town is used to paying, so I hesitate to do anything different with that. However, I do think that one of the important things we do have to do is to get a different mailbox structure, email box structure for the town, just to meet 91A requirements to be able to archive and store all of them. We, at this point, we're using GoDaddy, I believe, and it's got a limited storage amount on it, which we haven't run into problems with yet, but as time goes on, with Microsoft, they allow for the archiving and you get 5 gigabytes of storage per mailbox. So that's something, again, that's an operating issue that we'll pick up with the selectmen, but with the technology stuff, I actually did that, was responsible for that portion of things with Raymond when I was there for, I worked there for 13 years, and for 10 of it I was a technology coordinator, so I am very familiar with this. Again, I'm sorry I had to put this together so quickly for you, but I think it's relatively accurate, but I will firm it up for you and get you a better sheet as long as that's acceptable to you.
Any more questions? Not hearing any. Bruce, any comments?
I do have a comment. Since I don't have that sheet that you were looking at, I wanted to ask the town administrator if the amounts that are on the CIP spreadsheet are the right amounts for what is needed, because this year, again, I was going on a previous submittal sheet, and the submittal sheet from several years back said, first year we need 6, second year we need 8, third year we need 6, this year we need 6, and then for the next 2 years we need 6. If that doesn't work, we can change those numbers.
Right, yeah, I would need to do that, and that's because at this point, next year, it's like, we actually, in 2020, we need to get 10,000 in there just to meet the needs of what we have. And then beyond that, I want to carry it out myself on there, so.
All right, so I'm gonna change the 6,000 for the capital year coming up to 10,000. And then we can let me know what the fees are gonna be.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all for your patience. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's line 44.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is DPW.
You got a preference of what you want to start on?
Do you have a preference what you want to start on?
Well, I'll just do a quick overview. I'm really not asking for any huge equipment items, any equipment items this year. Just put money in the capital reserve funds for future purchases, which I believe the truck fund is still around 40,000, and the equipment one is 29 or 30,000. So that, I don't think it's changed from last year. Same number. The road construction, the road construction, we went from 325 to 350 this year because of the cost, increase in cost of the hot top. Other than that, as far as equipment goes, I'm not doing anything else there. If there's any questions on equipment, I'd be happy to answer anything, but we're in fairly decent shape right now. So I'm not seeing any major purchases. But I do have a new project that I gave paperwork for. I believe you have a copy of the plans, and that would be for the Dawson and Silver Street improvements. I got a block grant from the state that I had to use on a project that wasn't planned. So when I got that money, this project became planned. So I had the Dawson Street, Silver Street surveyed, videoed all of our drainage lines and catch basins. We also videoed some sewer lines. We pinpointed some major problems with the drainage, which is causing the flooding on Route 125 by the Pizza Nook. When it rains hard, you see the water goes over the road towards the dam. Also, you see Dawson Street flood at the foot of Silver Street, and you see water just running down the sidewalk and the road from Silver Street about halfway up the hill. And then just a little bit farther up Dawson Street, we found that an old stone culvert that was put in when Milton was created, I don't know, has collapsed anyway, and that's caused a drainage issue, and it's in the yard up by a house. So in the wintertime, we had a heavy rain, and I was down sandbagging houses on Dawson Street because the water got probably 2 feet deep coming down over the hill, and it flowed over the brook and was going into some basements and stuff. So we ended up having to try to stop that flow. So anyway, the survey was done, the inspection of the drainage was done. We got a price to do this project, which is gonna be sidewalks also, would be reestablished. New sidewalks with granite curbing. We're gonna move some telephone poles. Also, it would be to change the intersection of Silver and Dawson Street. So you wouldn't be able to just come down 125 and fly up Dawson Street. You would have to come, if you look at your plans, set of plans here that shows that intersection. I think it's sheet 3. Looks like that's this one. Can you see what I'm looking at?
Yeah, it should be down right there. Parking spaces and shit, so it's actually something similar to that right there. So, like down the highway.
I think I already have that one.
Yeah, it's the one with the parking spaces, right?
Oh, this one?
Yeah, no.
Which is the title on this one?
Okay. Shows the for the parking spots. Looks like it says sheet. It's a tiny, but it looks like it says
Sheet 3 of
sheet
something.
3 of
Drawing number Charlie 1.
Yeah.
The last one in my.
Okay.
If that helps. Everything up in the order you were given them,
So by looking at this drawing, you see that where the entrance from 125 onto Dawson Street, which would be where the parking spaces are, that section of Dawson Street would turn into an off-road parking lot for approximately 10 spaces. And that section of Dawson Street would be dead-ended, so no traffic would be able to come back up that road. The intersection would then move down right in line with Silver Street, so that Silver Street would be a straight shot to 125, and you would have to stop on Dawson Street to turn right to go to 125, or to turn left to go up to Silver Street. And we designed it this way to slow traffic down, and it's a much safer intersection. And also it provides for parking for downtown businesses off-street. Also, you can't see it on this drawing, but at the far end of that 10-lot parking area, on the edge of the road, if DOT authorizes and agrees with, we'll get another 4 parking spots there. So we could pick up a total of 14 parking spots in that area. The major cost, though, in this project is going to be the drainage. The drainage is about $500,000. And it's that much money because of the size of the pipe. You're running 3 and 4 foot diameter culvert pipe throughout. The culvert that crosses 125 is a 4-footer, I believe. And the rest of the stuff that the town would end up having to put in to tie into that 4-footer would be 36-inch and 24-inch. So there'd be some 2-foot stuff higher up, which would run into some 36, which would then run into the bigger stuff. Sidewalks would be redesigned, and we would use the existing granite that's underneath some of that hot top there now to keep that older look downtown. The only time we would end up purchasing new granite, and it would be farther out of town, and if we didn't have enough granite because some of it was broken and not able to be used, then we'd have to purchase granite to finish the sidewalks. If you look at the sidewalks on School Street and Steeple Street and Elm Street, those sidewalks were done in 2004 under a grant. So it would be similar to those types of sidewalks, except with using the older granite. It's going to be the same type of layout that if we can get a grass strip, we get a grass strip. We're trying to make Dawson Street lower. If you go up by that old church up there, you'll see that it's a high banking, it's a very narrow sidewalk. We can't put a piece of equipment on it to clean the snow off of it. We have to do it by hand because of the steepness and the narrowness of that. So it's kind of a safety issue also. Also down by the old hardware store, down by Pizza Nut, there's a high area there. It's got a couple of steps that goes up to the sidewalk. We want to bring that down or get that to somewhat road level so that there's not that, chance of somebody maybe tripping and falling off it or whatever at that point. So basically, that's pretty much what that project's going to be. It'll go all the way up Silver Street to One Rod Road. If you're not familiar with One Rod Road is, it's at the other end of Staple Street. And then it would go up Dawson Street to where Steeple Street is. So it would tie that all in, create that intersection, create that parking, and I believe it would give us a safer intersection in that area and better pedestrian and safety for pedestrians in that area. We did hold back $250,000 of this year's road construction money to try to help support that project. For next year, I don't know what the funding will be. I believe that would be up to the Board of Selectmen and the people of the town. But I just wanted to get this at least on the CIP so that we could start to plan to make the downtown area a little safer and to give us a little bit more parking. And also to take care of a major drainage issue that we have in the downtown area. And I'll take questions.
Any questions, comments?
Looks like you're gonna tear up Veterans Park,
No.
all these dotted
We're
lines.
not gonna touch anything that the veterans have done there. It'll go on the other side of that, where that catch basin hole is.
Yeah.
It'll be more over in that area than it will be to the other area. Because that was one of the things that I did say that I don't wanna encroach on. We are obviously gonna have to go through Veterans Park with some pipe. So I'm gonna need the guys that put in the irrigation system to probably help me on that one. Because we'll probably have to take the irrigation system out to go through and then put it back in afterwards before we reseed again.
That's along these lines here.
No, that's your drainage, Paul. That's the drainage lines.
Yeah, that's where you're putting the pipes in.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. And yeah. And so you'll see where it goes right by the well. You know where the well is there?
Yeah.
That's where a line's gonna come through and tap into that. There's a catch basin over by those maple trees on the bank where the flower garden is.
Yeah.
And it'll tie you all into that, and then it'll go underneath 125.
Is the state gonna help with any of this money?
I believe that Robert Saunders, he's the engineer in charge of this project for Underwood. He's been communicating with DOT. I haven't got a final answer on DOT yet. So I'm waiting. They you know how they work.
Well, only too well. I've understood that our town administrator's been trying to,
Yeah.
Come on,
Also, I believe, Bruce, you applied for the grant, correct?
Yes,
Did you speak on that?
I will. Last week, I finished preparing and writing a build grant to US DOT for, thank you. Very nice. I did that on July 12th, which isn't too far back. What we asked for was 80% of the cost of the construction plus 3%. So 3%, you have $983,000 as the cost of that project. And so when you add 3%, it comes out to $1,012,000 something dollars, which puts it over the minimum threshold for being eligible for the grant in the first place. What we said in the grant application was that we would begin construction in 2020. And so I did add it to the CIP, and the 20% match that is required for that $1,012,000 is roughly $202,000. And all I had said in the grant application was that you were going to use some of the highway block grant money that we get every year and put it away, and you've already told the board that. So in 2020, I have got it in the spreadsheet showing that you are going to use some of that $325,000. So I didn't double count it. When you look at the spreadsheet, everybody, on line 16, you go across, you see that the cost is empty there. There's no money, because it's already taken out up here at the top under road construction. You'd be double counting it if you put it in there twice. And if you're all right with that, Pat, we'll leave it that way.
So this is set up with you, assuming that we're gonna get that grant.
We won't know until after November 12th. And that's being optimistic. That's what the federal government's saying.
So is there a plan B yet, or is that too early to worry about plan B?
That's where you come in. Your plan B.
You had to ask.
I think, the main thing was for this to come forward in the CIP was to start this conversation. If we don't do anything with it next year, I'm not gonna jump and holler and scream that we didn't do anything, but we need to start talking about the infrastructure in the town of Milton. And we need to talk about how we're gonna fund the infrastructure repair in the town of Milton. It's going down fast. I've done $290,000 for 20 years. I'm not getting the mileage I was getting 20 years ago with $290,000, which is why we upped it to $325 last year, and we're trying to go to $350 this year. Hot top on it, if your best price of hot top this year alone is $70, and that's $4 under what the market price is. That's what I got hot top for this year. Everybody else is paying $85, $90 in some areas, depending on how far they have to travel. So when this all started, when the infrastructure plan started 20 years ago in town, hot top was $28 a ton. Gravel was $6 or $7 a ton. We're paying $15, $16, $17 a ton for gravel and $70, $75 a ton for hot top. You don't go very far with that stuff anymore. So if you look around, we're starting to fall back. I'm having a very hard time keeping up. Plus you get projects like Dawson Street and Silver Street. You have Church Street and Milton Mills that needs similar work with drainage, sidewalks, and granite. There's just different places that need work that if you continue to shim and overlay with your $300,000 every year, you're getting maybe 2 miles of overlay, and you got no more money to do anything else. So I want to have a conversation with the planning board, with the board of selectmen, with the town administrator on infrastructure and what we can put together to fund it. I know what needs to be done. I mean, Bob's asking for his road to be upgraded, but where do you get the money to do that kind of work and continue to
Save what you got.
maintain the stuff you've already sunk hundreds of thousands of dollars in? That's where my dilemma is. I'm having a problem maintaining what I've got us to this point.
I just wanted to address your question, Ryan, about Plan B. We are kind of putting all our eggs, at least until the end of the year here, into the basket of Plan A, which is where we really want the grant. a lot of good words went into that grant, a lot of hard work on somebody's part. But the bottom line is that I think there's a good chance that we could get that USDOT build grant. It's, the build grant really took the place of the old Tiger grants. And we didn't used to be eligible for Tiger grants, but now what they've done is they've made rural areas, within a metropolitan planning area, eligible for especially projects that do several things. And Pat explained that to you. This project solves 3 or 4 problems and even helps with revitalization of the village by providing sidewalks and by providing new parking spaces, which I think the village needs badly. And finally, it helps do a safety concern with that pointed intersection where Dawson comes back into 125. I put all that into the grant so that the grant evaluators would know this isn't just a brick and mortar project for road construction and subsurface drainage. It does all these things, providing alternative transportation, solving safety issues, helping with village revitalization. So that's kind of how I wrote the grant. I hope it's going to be successful. But if it's not, Plan B could be, a possible Plan B could be, and we used to do this in Dover. If the project was a little bit too much to fund in one year, you started the construction in one fiscal year, and then sometimes you kind of let it drag over into the next year so that you could avail yourself of funding in 2 separate years. So if it's $1 million, you're going to spend 501 and 509. That's one possible Plan B. Beyond that, I haven't got anything else.
Now, we talked we were going for a federal grant, and then we talked to money the town's going to come up with. Is the state going to come up with anything?
I can't answer that yet.
Well, the good thing about writing that grant is that the grant funnels back down to DOT for their review. And as you know, you've already sent the 90% design plan to District 6, and what's been their answer?
They haven't given one yet.
That's right. I'm hopeful that the grant application, when it funnels back down from USDOT, will get their interest peaked, so that they'll be more interested.
What they wanted us to do is they wanted us to go out and determine all of the right-of-ways that they own.
Yeah.
So we ended up having to go out
And you did.
and survey and get, establish the state's right-of-way, which most of that area that we're talking about, right up into the middle of Veterans Park, is all state land. It's all state land.
And the grant talks about potential partners, and they want potential partners. So I said that New Hampshire DOT is a potential partner with the town of Milton. So I think it kind of gels together. It'll get them.
They haven't said no, so we're still working on it.
That's right, but it'll get them
so
more
we-
interested in talking with us, I think.
When Underwood gets back to me with an answer, because they're the ones that are working directly with Division 6 on the right-of-way issues and that type of stuff, and I'll be able to let everybody know. But I haven't heard anything yet. I'm guessing probably not until fall.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
So I guess comment or concern, if we're gonna plan on using the $250,000 from the regular road construction grant, just for clarity for maybe everybody that will look at this later and isn't part of this conversation, should we pull that out of that line and move it down to this project?
Oh,
So
the
it's
250 is already there. And I didn't spend it this year. So there's 250,000 that's sitting there already in Milton's account to cover
What?
that part of that.
But should we be showing that on that?
Well, it would be when we did the paperwork, right, with the other finances.
Yeah, on the Form A.
It's on it. It's on it.
But if I add 250,000 here.
Well, I'm saying
It's not
you have
about-
to subtract it out.
We can
but-
subtract it out at the bottom. And I'm gonna look at where I would do that, and possibly with a footnote, because you're not raising, one of the things that you hopefully total up is what the total funding from the tax levy will be. And we kind of never got to that, but we're close. And we've got a line that's other revenue offsets, and we've got a line that's grant offsets. I'm pretty sure it would have to go into other revenue offsets. We did add total unassigned fund balance amount in there. That would be subtracted out too, but I haven't got those figures. We should get that figure as soon as the Board of Selectmen makes a decision on that. Whether they're gonna reduce the amount of warrant or tax levy money from the capital improvement program by assigning some of that. But that's a conversation that we need to have as a board after you hear all the projects.
Pat, I was looking up here, and it shows we've already paid our part for the townhouse pond bridge. We've got all the funds for that.
I don't think so.
We haven't got anything after
I'm
2018.
not sure exactly what the new price was. Bruce and I had a conversation that DOT gave us the wrong number for
Well,
townhouse.
we've gone beyond that. We are at the point where I'm waiting only for the DOT to revise the draft municipal agreement to address the comments from our insurance carrier, Primex. They've addressed all the other comments. The money is much less than the last time you heard it for this project.
Because I know it went way up.
The money piece is going to be right in the municipal agreement. All I'm waiting for is them to get me that draft so that I can schedule the Board of Selectmen to hear it and review it. I'm waiting on them again.
So what's the prognosis of how soon for that bridge to be, if it can be done?
I
State.
don't know, they don't even have a date yet.
They do.
They do have a date?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not remembering, but it's much sooner again
Okay.
than you heard, on social media and
I don't read social media.
Some newspapers and much sooner. And so, the bottom line is that I have all those facts and figures, and I can send it to the board, and I can
Yep.
send it to you, Pat.
But while we're talking about bridges, I want to raise a point to Church Street, if you don't mind. Church Street Bridge, Milton Mills.
Is it?
That's the one you sent the email on the other day.
Yeah.
Church Street Bridge, Maine DOT has dropped that to 17 ton in a single lane. And they called me and told me, not this year, it was a year or so ago, that they're thinking about closing Church Street Bridge because it's failed. So that's another bridge that the town is probably gonna end up having to put money away for to be replaced. I wanna say I saw the date was 2025, so that doesn't give us that many years for 2025 to come around for another bridge. And, you've seen it, so you know what
yeah.
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But that bridge is the truck bridge that goes into the Sanford area.
Yep.
Right now they're using French Street, and I don't know how much longer they're gonna be able to use French Street without tearing houses down and everything
Oh, yeah.
else. So anyway, that is coming.
And we're supposed to meet with the
Maine
the
DOT.
engineer from the Maine DOT.
Yep.
And one of the things that we'll talk to him about is whether or not Maine is willing to do an intermediate repair under that bridge.
Yep.
In lieu of replacing it sooner at that higher cost. I don't know if you know what I mean, but the point is that if the bridge that's on here, if the line 20, replace Winding Hill Road Bridge 2026, money's been going into the capital reserve fund. That capital reserve fund isn't called Winding Hill Road, it's called Maine New Hampshire Bridges. And so,
No, there's two of them.
no, I understand that.
Okay.
I understand this.
Okay.
But the state has told us that Winding Hill Bridge is not even on their horizon. we shouldn't hold our breath because we might die. But it might be somewhere out beyond 2032. And so what I think we need to talk about is whether it's possible to use some of that CRF money to do the repair that's needed on that bridge, just to get the 17 ton road back up.
Yep. Okay, the last one is the DPW garage and engineering. And we're just gonna continue to put money away until we can save enough to get that started now. No, I think we only have 100. That one. I think there's only, there might be 100,000 in there. I think it's 2 years worth. The government building.
Municipal building capital reserve. 50,000. Yep,
Oh, no, it failed this year.
right.
So there's
you've got
50,000 in there.
492.
So that fund is set up for the DPW design and engineering and also to maintain buildings throughout the town. This building being one that's gonna be needing some work. Roof, foundation. I don't think I have anything else on here. I think that's pretty much all I have.
The only thing
So-
that you added that you didn't have last year or the year before was the incremental savings for the 10-ton equipment trailer and the 3-ton equipment trailer in lines 21 and 22. So you added them. You should have done it before, but you added them this year, and that's a good thing because you're putting away the little bits of money
Yep.
based on your fleet matrix
Right.
for the life of the equipment.
Bolin Road paving,
Bowling Road paving,
yeah.
I don't have that ready yet.
Is that gonna be submitted this year?
I don't know if I'm gonna get it done or not. There's a lot to it. We think Dawson's pretty expensive, and wait till I get that one going.
Would that be part of your road construction?
Yeah, well, it is,
line?
but it was asked to be.
Or it has to be a separate project?
Oh.
So what I gotta do is I'm gonna get a price on the whole project, and then I'll bring it in and get it going.
Okay.
But I
Bolin
gotta go
Road.
through and,
But it wasn't the entire Bolin Road, it was just the,
I'm not gonna give you the price on the whole entire Bowling Road, because if I just do a piece of it, then the rest of the people are gonna be in, and then you're gonna say, you might as well, so I'm just gonna do the whole thing all at once. And if you wanna break it up into increments, that's totally up to you on how you wanna do it, but
because I believe
I'm giving you the whole thing.
the group that came in was asking for the beginning
understand
start
that.
that.
I
So
understand
can we
that.
separate it out when you bring it to us, so we have it in?
You can, but that, I mean, again, I'm gonna figure the whole road when I do it. I might as well, if I'm gonna go out there and put the effort into it, I might as well not just do half, I might as well do the other half too. So, I'm just gonna do the whole thing.
But even though we show it as a separate project, I guess I'm asking, when you fill out your Form A, there's a line that you have to tell us where the money is coming from. Is it coming from the tax levy? Either a warrant or a whole warrant, part of the,
Well, again, I go
General
back to what
budget.
I said
or
earlier.
is it coming out of your road construction?
Right, well,
That's all I'm asking for, is what's the funding source?
we need to have a conversation on how we're gonna start funding this stuff. I don't believe we can fund everything. And to be truthful with you, I can't afford to maintain the paved roads I got. It's cheaper for me to maintain a dirt road than it is a paved road at this point in time. I understand Bob doesn't like that, they don't wanna be on a dirt road, and I don't blame him. But it doesn't cost me $100,000 to go up and fix it.
But I think the intention of that Board of Selectmen meeting and the thought was, I mean, not necessarily Bob individually, it was the group that was there. And the board voted and asked that it become a separate project, and it was the first part of Bolin Road. And it wasn't necessarily that it was gonna be funded necessarily next year, but to get it in the CIP as a separate line, so it could be a warrant article if so
I'll put it
desired.
together for you. I
So,
just haven't had the opportunity to do it yet.
so I guess my question is, I understand you have a lot going. Is it in the plans to make it to the planning board this year?
It's not gonna make it to the planning board this year. Not unless I can get it done tomorrow, which I'm not gonna be able to do that. I don't know when I'm gonna get it done. I got 3 guys.
We gotta somehow get the communication going back and forth here, because it was brought up several months ago.
Right.
And
I
it was
know.
voted on and
I
asked
know it's
that,
on that list of stuff to do, I just haven't.
asked to be presented as a project for this
Yeah.
year, so.
Well, again, I haven't got to that point. I'm sorry, I just haven't got to that point. It's not that I've been putting it off or anything, I just haven't got there yet.
Yeah, the latest that you could get in a submission is August 6th.
Obviously,
That's the next planning board.
I could fill out a Form A. I don't have to have an accurate number on it. I can get it on there.
And
Do
can you
that.
get a rough number
It'll
for
be on
maybe
It'll be on the plan,
the first half of the road?
yeah.
Maybe
It'll be on
not
the
go
plan,
for the
but
whole
it's-
thing,
yeah.
just the first half?
I can get it on the plan. I can't tell you what the number will be, the exact number, but I can get it on the plan.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else, Pat?
I'm good. The only other thing I have is I'm here with the rec department.
You know this, she's doing your calculator work.
So I've got the funds up, so I know what I'm talking about when you ask me how much money's in something. I can validate for you how much money is in them.
So, I've been working with Karen on a CIP project for the town beach. And I gave you a Form A, new item. So, the project title is the beach restoration. The priority would be recreation priority 1, the location of town beach. It's a new item to the program. Karen Brown is the contact person. Her phone number is on there. The description of this capital improvements project would be to design, engineer, construct, maintain the town beach and buildings, and to match grants and to purchase permits for any type of work that needs to be done on the beach. The alternative considered would be to do nothing and continue as is. The justification and useful life of this project is to maintain and beautify the beach for future generations. Just to get this on the program, to get the conversation started, so that people understand that that the beach needs to update bathrooms. I mean, the bathrooms are 1950s. I've lived in Milton my whole life, and that's the same bathroom since I was that tall. So they haven't changed, they're the same. Nothing that I can remember, other than that ball field being put in and the playground being put in my lifetime, has happened to that beach. Zero. Nothing. I have
Just did a tree.
a contractor.
Fairy house.
I have a contractor, a local contractor, that's willing to work with the town and donate things, trees, maybe some sod type of stuff. Totally willing to work with us. But this form, what this starts with, and if you see, it starts in 2020 and it says $3,000 a year for the next 6 years for a total of $18,000. What that money would be put there for is to start to design and engineer the things that need to be done. For example, it needs to have a complete septic system down there. The septic system is 1950 septic system. It's a holding tank
Yeah.
for a leach field. It's not a leach field. It's a tank. I believe it's a metal tank with a bunch of holes poked in it. That's what I think it is.
And Chris said it will not be grandfathered.
And so that
Not at all.
that has to come out of there. What this does is it gives the rec department and the rec commission something to start with, to start to figure out what they need to do to bring it up to code, to get, handicap bathrooms in there for people. These are just old wooden stalls. If you've not been in there, they're old wooden stalls. I don't even know if they're wide enough.
We currently have a handicap porta potty on site.
But I mean,
ADA
yeah, right, the bathrooms though
regulations.
are not set up for that. So if they're in that area and they're not in the parking lot, they're not gonna be able to get in there. They're gonna,
Next to the bathhouse.
so, anyway. The funding for this would be some tax dollars and also revenues from the beach and fundraisers that the rec department could do to generate money to help support this. Total realistic price for the total thing from start to finish over, I don't know how many years it'll take, but I'm thinking somewhere around 250 would be, by the time you're done, what you'd have into that. You got drainage issues where all the sand and gravel are running right straight through the middle of the beach and right into the lake. There would be designed and planned to control the water running into the lake, to stop the sediment from going into the lake. So the idea is to address all those little problems that are going on down there that has never been touched in 50, 60 years. We pride ourselves on the three ponds, and we say that the three ponds is what we use to draw people to Milton. Why is not our beach the showpiece of the town to draw people to Milton? Our beach should be the showpiece of this town. We should put money into that beach and make that a spectacular place to make people want to come to Milton to go to that beach. Nothing's been done to it. There's safety issues on it. It's time to, at least think about and talk about making our showpiece a showpiece.
Yeah, so 2 points then. First is if you're going to design, you're going to first assess what you got to do, but then design. You probably ought to be ramping up implementation monies towards the end of this program. And hopefully you've got sort of a vision of sequencing and what absolutely has to be addressed first.
And the commission is working on it. They were gonna bow out this year because they are moving forward with the new ramp this fall.
Yeah.
So they were gonna take a year, but we might as well get into this now, because there are plans to continue. Once the boat ramp is in, you'll draw more revenue through the gates for the use of the ramp. And then they'll have more money on their end to be able to put towards, and they've got to decide what their number one is. The conversation at this point is whether to get rid of the old bathrooms altogether and replace it with a building that has bathrooms in it available to the public, because of the worries that once that building gets taken down, that we're gonna have real issues getting approved for a sewer system down there at all, because of the proximity to the water and the different rules and regulations that are in place today that weren't when that bathroom got put in. You have a field taking up 3/4 of the space down there. They may look at eliminating the field. I'm not sure. At this point, they're not talking about it. They're talking about taking a base of the building that's there and adding on to it, was the conversation that just came up. But still, it may not be feasible to do that at all, with the regulations of building that close to a waterfront. So they're looking into it. Chris Jacobs is on the commission, and he's looking at all the stuff. He's the one working on the permitting process for the new ramp going in.
So shouldn't that new ramp be on this, even though it's gonna be funded from,
It was
The rec revolving
denied, I
fund.
guess, it was, I don't know if it should, yeah, still be in place, but it will be complete by the fall if they get enough. We had a business owner that came through, or who has promised, is it still there?
It's on here,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's on here.
It's on
60,
there.
line 60.
Is looking at giving a substantial donation. And if that happens, they'll have more revenue. There will be less impact on the gate fees that are gonna be generated this year and the money in the capital reserve fund. At this point, there's 17,552 available.
So is the design of the ramp that they can implement is part of the,
I don't think there's really a design to it. They're going to replace an existing ramp.
right?
So,
Well, I'm thinking, if we're gonna look at redesigning everything, that should be part of it, that should be the cornerstone of it. Also, when you start building everything else, you go, I gotta change that.
Yeah.
Basically.
well, the ramp's
So what I'm
been
saying
in
is
place
at 3,000 a
since the
year,
60s,
you
so-
Right,
And the
but the
50s.
update.
Yeah.
At 3,000 a year, you're not building anything.
No, this was
So
just
that's-
kind of a
so
placeholder.
go out,
I believe they'll come back
you know.
next year with a much more defined plan of their
Okay.
roadmap of what they
All right.
want to do.
I think once they start getting their bids in for their engineers to design,
Mhm.
and who's gonna do the septic, and, there's meetings that gotta take place with the state and different things and different permitting, and then that's when we'll get a real number. This is to get it on, so
Okay.
that.
The conversation started about what
it's
really needs
seen
to be.
about what rec wants to do.
Okay.
Is this ramp the same ramp that the police boat has been?
That's a dock.
That's a dock, okay.
We're talking about the actual physical driveway thing you back down. It's a concrete
I see, okay.
constructed.
Sorry.
Yeah, no.
And then we're gonna research and see if there's any grants that may be available for this type of
Right.
thing also.
Renovation.
So if we can start applying for any type of federal or state money, we're gonna just go for it. And this would cover that, if there's any matching funds that you have to have.
The original capital reserve fund
That would-
covers that as
That
well.
would cover
Yeah.
that.
Any more questions or comments?
I mean, I can't tell you how popular that place is. I can't even.
I went by,
It
wait
is
till this
just
weekend, you won't
crazy.
even be able to get in there.
And I would like to see some of the, I mean, it's not my druthers, but I'd like to see some of the money raised from the camp to keep expanding that playground that's down there, because it is, it really is the congregating part of this town. You see from grandparents with young children, they're out there having just as much fun as the kids are. And we got limited equipment for the amount of people using the property. It's been, I can't even tell you the impact, and the nice comments I've had back from the families. It was about time that Milton did something for the families in town. So it's all been positive. One step at a time.
Yep.
But it was, a big impact,
Yep.
huge impact. And Pat's right, it should be the diamond of the town. It's where people come from down south, they come from up north down to have family picnics there. It's a meeting gathering place for a lot of people. And generations have used it. So if we don't continue to improve it, when I took it over 10 years ago, and when they turned the money over to the rec commission, the place was really in such disrepair. I can't even, and I've been on the commission, involved in the commission for 23 years, and Pat is right, other than the playground
And that ball field.
and that ball field, there's been nothing done to that property. But lots of money generated back to the town
That ball
because
field was donated.
yeah.
Family donated the money for that ball field.
Yeah,
And
2
just-
years? 2 years? 3 years.
No, go ahead.
The only comment I think that I have is, I think if the commission has a plan to take so much of the revenue that they get each year and set it aside for something like this, I think it will help let everybody understand and see that they're really serious and want to do this. And I
Right.
think one of the struggles for the short time that I've been involved, for me, from what I see, is there's really been no defined plan. There's X amount of dollars, some of it goes here, some of it goes there, and then some of it's left over from the year before. But I've never seen anybody work or try to get to a plan where, okay, this is what we're saving to, this is what we're going to do first, this is the end
they're
goal.
heading towards that.
I think that's been a lot of the problem with why the ramp
Yeah.
hasn't
Well, they
been
had the
funded.
money. I mean, the money that was generated for the ramp was through,
But I think you had issues getting the ramp to go through because people didn't understand where the funds that was being made down there were going, and how come that wasn't paying for the ramp, because it was never clearly defined how much money came in, how much it cost to run the beach, how much was put back into the beach, and where it was put back into the beach.
Any more?
I'm gonna ask her a question afterwards. That's okay. Thank you.
Oh, okay, it's you again. Water District.
yeah, I didn't know that was on, but I can answer anything you want me to answer. I was unaware. I would have had the operator come tonight.
We've got nothing for this capital year.
I do know that the operator is working with DES on an asset management plan, because we cannot apply for any grant money until that asset management plan is in place. I met with DES for about 2.5 hours one morning, and he was stressing the importance of that, because once we get that in place, there is funding available to map the entire water district system. I don't know who does it. I know they're working with Granite State Rural Water, and all I can remember is his name is Richard from DES. That we buttoned up a lot of the leakage that was going on. We found an illegal line that was put in at the end of Elm Street, and we're working with the state right now to disband that line and run a new line, which goes out to the end of Elm Street, where that if there was any expansion going to happen off the end, that's where it would be happening. We were talking about actually taking that offline period, but the state is kind of wants us to offer a new line to these people because of wetlands, and the line is actually in a brook, buried. So that was courtesy of our old construction people. I'm
You
not
don't
gonna
even
say
have to-
any names,
you
but
don't
it
have to.
was extremely illegal what was done. So that line is going to be capped off and done, which should back up the pressure all the way up Elm Street. Because we don't know how much water was flowing in that brook, or has been, or for how long. But that has been resolved, and the state is very much involved in it at this point.
What's this analysis gonna cost? Any idea?
That is gonna be free.
But you have to
If
get,
we do the asset management
Is that-
study,
yeah, you have to pay for that?
no,
Asset man- no?
they're coming in, the state's coming in to help us with it.
Beautiful.
The operator's working on that. And part of having the asset management part in place will qualify us to have this mapping program done for the whole town. And that way they can tell if the system can handle any expansion at this point or not.
Then you'll be able to put
Excuse me.
Right. Until that asset management is in place, we can't do anything. And we can only take on so much more debt. You've got a very limited amount of people using the water district, and there's only so much. I can say a lot of things have been buttoned up over the last few months. And they continue to be.
Should run a line down St. James and Michael Terrace.
We button up who's getting water and how. When I finally took the chairmanship, there were over 70 houses in this town that had not paid water fees in multiple years. That was known by other commissioners at that point, which is no longer. And then the management down there has now found an additional multiple houses that in the system that was being used, if you didn't put a placeholder when somebody asked for a final read, that whole address went away. So when they've actually been going house to house, figuring out and coming down and finding out occupied properties, we could just plug in the address and their last 5 years worth of bills comes up and we research and we can bill those people 100% of their water usage for the last 5 years, like some 3 years, some 4 years, some 5 years. So we're working on buttoning up the entire system before we look at expanding it and seeing how much, because we're at a huge amount of water loss and that's going down and down and down now that we're finding these properties and finding the holes. We just pulled the line off of where Scott Barry used to live.
Yeah.
And it's still a mystery why his shutoff is across the street, but the line that they pulled out of that property actually had multiple holes in it, and how they fixed it was taking an old piece of rubber tire and some metal strapping and covered the hole and pull it tight. So I have no idea what the rest of that line looks like across, and that's coming down from the tower. So we are going to be, I was going to move forward with having the entire thing ripped up to find out what we're looking at because it's coming off the tower, but
Yeah.
right now they're going to hold off on that and fix this problem at Elm Street prior to us doing anything further.
May he rest in peace.
There's a lot of St. Cobain money available, and once that asset management is in place, we can apply for grant money. But we have to have that plan in place, and that's being currently worked on. Or at least I've been told it's being worked on. I can't validate that, other than I was told by the operator that he is working with New Hampshire DES and Granite State Rural Water on how we can get the plan in place so that we can apply for some St. Cobain money, which I think would probably play into the mapping of the system. That's where the funding's coming from, some of it.
Okay.
That's all I can tell you.
It's not only the water department that has people not paying. Sewer's pretty good too.
Is it? Yeah. Well, I was shocked when I found out.
I found one, 4 units.
70 homes not paying for water. It's disgusting.
Can't make it
It really was.
Bruce is looking for you.
Bruce?
I would've known that, I wouldn't have.
I
You
got a
drove it,
question
wasn't well.
about the water management, and that is this. Knowing that if the planning board gets a development application before them for something like high-tech office or industrial or warehouse or 150 or 200 homes, that it's the best plan to make sure, if you don't know how much capacity you have in a utility, to put a water utility capacity and expansion analysis study in the capital improvement program in the farthest out year that you can, and that's what we show here.
Mm-hmm.
That enables the planning board to exact a fair share amount of whatever that development is towards that study from that developer. Without it being there, they can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, if you get money, it has to be used within 6 years. But the bottom line is, the question I had is, are you okay with that study being put in the out year of the capital improvement program? Right now, it's in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Probably next year, we'll move to 2026, unless we get grants to do that kind of a study. But that's the reason for putting that study in the water utility and also in the sewer utility, so that the planning board has the power to get the money that it deserves from potential developers.
Right.
Whenever that may happen.
Mm-hmm. I'm all, yeah, you tell me what you want me to do.
Just-
Me and 2 other guys that are very
That's
young,
fine.
very
So,
green.
We're not really asking you to do anything unless you've got capital projects that you want to submit.
At this point, no.
That's
We
right.
can't
So-
do anything till the whole system is mapped up. I can't even tell you, like that pipe that was across the tower, from the tower, I have no idea how old that is, but I can't even believe they had water flowing through it, to be honest with you. It was bad.
Yeah, all I was asking was whether you are on board with that
Yes,
being in the outcomes.
yes.
Thank you.
That's good.
Rick Schlenker, that's his name. I knew I He's the gentleman from DES.
We've done, let's see, recreation, water, sewer department. Dale wasn't with us, but he gave us all a synopsis of what's going on. I'll try to read it in the minutes.
I'm gonna bow out if I'm
I
not.
do want to say about this wastewater plant, bullet statement about what Dale Sprague feels is the state of the sewer utility. The thing that you take away from this is that right now, the plant was designed to create 100,000 gallons per day. Right now, for the last 3 years, on average, the plant has been using 50,000 gallons a day. But the conservative estimate to maintain the current level of treatment is 90,000, not 100,000. And so that gives you 40,000 gallons a day capacity left. What does that do for you? That means that if a development comes in here of 200 homes, that uses up every bit of the rest of the sewer utility capacity. If you have a 2 or 3 industrial or high-tech or warehouse users come in, that uses up all of the capacity of the existing sewer utility. That's really what these bullets mean. So what it tells me is you can't do very much development where you want it, in the villages and in your industrial commercial zones in town, especially in the place where the sewer is, without the capacity being used up. And many developers won't come here. So that's the reason why Dale Sprague is on board with keeping the sewer utility capacity and expansion analysis study in the out years of the capital improvement program, so that the planning board has the power, if a developer comes in, to get their fair share exaction to pay for the study, pay for their share of the study. And that's it.
Okay. Next is to review of master plan tie-in matrix.
Now we need to add the rec department beach.
Yeah.
But the only thing that they've listed here is just a ramp, right?
Yep.
And Dawson and Silver.
Yep.
And hopefully bowling.
Yep.
A question mark by that one, because that will all depend on if Pat can submit Form A for that. If he doesn't do it, I can't add it.
You seem fairly confident you have the form ready for it by August.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you need to look at it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess what I'm looking for tonight with this, just to keep us on track, is if I add the beach project, Dawson and Silver, and the Bolin project, I'm looking for whether or not you agree with the master plan tie-in results in this matrix, and so I can take the draft off of this.
Any questions or comments on this?
I think the GIS is only normal versus strong.
In past years, the planning board has said that, mainly because they placed a great emphasis on things like emergency services, fire, and ambulance and police, and the DPW, which keeps the road open for people to get, for those folks to get to you when you need them. So a lot of those are strongs, and if the board wants to change it to strong, that's fine.
Yes, think. Changing it from normal to strong, GIS, because the infrastructure supports emergency aspects of it.
Is that a motion?
Sure.
I have a
Motion.
second. With them to take this GIS from normal to strong? Bob seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Strong.
Okay.
This Winding Hill, we have it now as strong, but in the earlier discussion, it was said that it may not happen at all.
Yeah, what are we putting into the Winding Hill project? That wasn't, let's see here. Bridge, where
25,000.
Right.
is it? Yeah,
I guess my suggestion would be for us to change the name of that project, the Maine New Hampshire Bridges, because that's what the capital reserve fund is, that money goes into, the $25,000 each year that's gone into that, and
Right.
it's being proposed for 2020. It really, it can't be Winding Hill Road anymore, as you said, Bob. It's gotta be some Maine, New Hampshire bridge. And there are others right now that may need money more than a bridge that the state says that they will not put on their list, on their stick, for another decade or so. So I agree with you.
So, you make a motion to change the title?
I can do that.
you got it?
You making a motion?
You make the
Yeah.
motion? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor of changing the name?
Aye.
Aye.
New Hampshire.
So Maine, New Hampshire Bridges?
He has two different funds. We have there's a single town fund as well, unless we didn't put any money in it.
There
For
are
bridges.
There are two bridge funds, as I understand it.
Yeah.
And you can look it up because you have the financial sheets from a couple of meetings ago that talk about all of the capital reserve funds. There
Yeah.
should be a Maine, New Hampshire Bridges Capital Reserve Fund.
Right.
And there should be a capital reserve fund, I think called Townhouse Pond.
Townhouse, yeah, we got Townhouse and Winding Hill on this map.
Okay. But is that what they're both officially called?
As of right now, yeah. So
Okay.
we just changed it, because the way you were talking, the Townhouse may have extra funds left over.
I believe it will.
So then that might, if we put it in to this one we just created,
Well, we still have bridges that are not interstate. The by keeping a separate fund for the interstate ones, that allows for matching monies when that comes up.
Mhm.
But if we've got other bridges that we're not gonna get anything from anybody for, we need to be watching them as well.
Right. Shouldn't necessarily
Maybe
have,
we don't need to put as much in it, and maybe every year we don't have to put anything, put something in it, but just like you can look at a prioritization and an expected life cycle of the ones, the interstate ones, is you can do the same thing with.
And right now, you've got more than, I think there's 3 bridges that need work that are interstate bridges, main New Hampshire bridges.
I think it's, though, it makes sense, though, to have one that's for all the bridges that aren't tied to both states, that's just owned by the town versus, and then have the separate one,
I have to look, hold on.
I would think. Right, keep it separate. No wonder this one,
I didn't pull that one out
so
of
we
it.
gotta keep it separate from this one.
I didn't expect to look at that this week.
So I'd look at that. Otherwise, they
What
can
bridge is just
put it in our
Milton?
fund.
It's,
Winding Hill,
That's it.
yeah, that's
And
not
you know that
interstate.
that's not even on the horizon, right?
Right, there's
As far
2
as-
capital reserve
Yeah.
funds for bridges, as I said. One is called Milton Main Bridges. Currently, it has $174,334 in it. The other one is called Milton Bridges, and it has $26,387. So that's the one that the Winding Hill Road Bridge money has been going into. 25,000, and it's earned about $1,400 in interest.
So on the other sheet, we should change that, possibly change the Milton, the townhouse to the Milton Bridges.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I keep it on your spreadsheet
Yeah.
is because we are showing what the town approved and what the voters approved from 2017, 2018, and 2019. And if you read that under line 19, it says that the capital reserve fund payments were complete
Yeah.
in 2018. And it does show that the town put aside 20,000 in 17 and 20,000 in 18, and beyond that, into the past, much more money until you get to this, whatever this amount is here, 174,000 something. That is right now earmarked only for the townhouse on Road Bridge. But the town will not owe that much. And you'll see that when the municipal agreement comes from DOT. The match from the town is more like 156,000 or something around there.
So what are we naming that Winding Hill Bridge thing? What are we changing the name to?
Well, it's up to you, but I think that you could call it Main New Hampshire or Interstate Bridge monies for any bridge that needs work. I mean, that's how the capital reserve fund was written up in the warrant. Was this money is to be spent on Main New Hampshire bridges in town.
Well, yeah, Winding Hill's a New Hampshire bridge. Yeah, it doesn't have to be interstate.
Right?
That's
So-
the way it's worded is,
So Maine/New Hampshire bridges? So either or both?
Well, I don't think we
see
can
what you-
change the name of the capital reserve
We're not
fund.
changing the name of the capital reserve.
We can just change the name of the
Really, what
project.
we-
Yeah.
Right, should we
Project,
match
right.
it to match the capital reserve?
I would agree with that.
I'm a little French, but
Unless we're trying to identify that that project is for a certain bridge,
Correct.
which I think we have been in the past. So I think what we're saying is we want to take that bridge money and put it into interstate bridges. I think that's what we all
Right.
were thinking we were voting on and agreeing on, right?
Correct.
So are we all on the same page now? Maybe?
I guess I didn't understand it either.
So it's technically changing the project.
We-
Because
No,
you
we're
were,
moving-
And so-
it
We're
was
moving the money
And-
is a
yeah,
warrant.
I don't agree with what you did, so, because Winding Hill Road Bridge is not an interstate bridge, correct?
Correct.
And so the money is put into something called Milton Bridges.
But Milton Bridges can only be used for Milton Bridges that
that
isn't
are not-
interstate.
That are not interstate bridges.
Right, and I thought that from what we heard tonight, there's multiple interstate bridges that are in desperate need of repair compared to the interstate bridge,
So
right?
maybe what
Or
you
did
are
I misunderstand
recommending as part of your annual CIP report to the Board of Selectmen is that that there shouldn't be two capital reserve funds, there should only be one,
Bridges?
for all bridges.
Just say bridges?
And that you close up, that you take out the money from the one called, whichever, I don't care which one. Take out all the money from Milton main bridges and then close that CRF down by warrant. And then make sure that what you can spend the money on in the Milton Bridges account encompasses all bridges in Milton, even the interstate ones. Does that sound too complicated?
Yeah, I like
That's what
that.
has to happen.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
When you get one account, you get more interest on it. Technically.
So that's gonna be one of your bullet points in your report.
Okay?
Good.
So that means, if we go back to the original question,
It's why is
it
it
needs
strong?
to stay, it needs to stay strong. Okay, if it was a Milton Bridge only, then it didn't need to be strong. But since we're back to now including it as
Is all
all
bridges.
bridges, then it remains strong.
Yeah.
We're just gonna say-
Now, did not that long ago, those titles of those capital reserve funds were changed?
At some point, I think, yeah.
So you're
So we need
essentially
some
merging the
consistency.
two capital reserve funds? Is that what we're saying?
We're asking
It
the
is, but I
voters if they
thought
want
we
to do
just
that.
merged something not too long ago that we either separated them or there was 2 or 3 for specific bridges and we moved them into 2 separate ones. I don't remember exactly, but
We separated them because of Winding Bridge Road.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah. So when we separated them specifically for this. But if there's no chance of that happening anytime,
In my lifetime.
yeah, in our lifetimes, then it doesn't make sense to hold a bunch of money. Well, it makes sense to hold the money to repair it if it needs to be repaired.
I'm not sure.
If it's not happening, it's not happening.
You can always add it back on later,
Well,
or include that into that as one of the projects.
and maybe we shouldn't change the name of the project. The more I think about
Oh, no.
And it's only 8 o'clock.
it,
We definitely shouldn't put any money in it.
Okay.
So
We do know
I
that.
don't put money in it.
that's the other thing. If the project really is for a Winding Hill Road Bridge fix or replacement, and the state doesn't want to do it, and I went right to DOT and sat down with them, and they said, first of all, I said, well, you know, the town might be able to fix this, you know, with an open-ended box culvert, and it wouldn't cost what you're saying it's gonna cost, which was over $1 million. And does it really adhere to the definition of a bridge? Which DOT is pretty stickler on this, is that they have definitions for things. Is it a bridge or is it something else? And they said, oh, it's 22 feet long, it's a bridge. And so it has to be fixed this way. It's going to cost $1.3 million to do, and it needs to be done, but you missed the train. And so it's out here beyond our program. We don't even have funding for the program that far out. And so that was the gist of the meeting that I had with DOT. Bottom line is that we could keep the project in there. Pat is still asking for $25,000 for the coming capital year. And it would go into that Milton Bridges account. Where does that leave us? It leaves us with either, and I don't think changing the name of it makes sense now that I think of it. I think you could not prioritize this, or you could not recommend it until there's a need to save the money.
A realistic timeline.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what we might want to do.
So now we
You
change
might
strong
wanna
to weak.
Rescind that other motion.
All right.
So I take back my motion.
I'll second that.
Oh, I did it based on what he said.
Do we want to change its rating?
Yes, now we do.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Yes, you do.
I move that we change it to, well, normal, I guess is probably okay.
Yeah.
Weak would probably be more
More
appropriate.
appropriate.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It now becomes a weakly strong. Strongly weak one normal.
Now, while we're on the subject of bridges,
Yeah?
a few years ago, the engineering department at UNH did a bridge in Epping.
Yeah.
You know, the first bridge on 27 after you turn right onto 27.
On the Mill Street?
Yeah.
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 Now, I don't know if they're still doing that. Charlie Goodspeed was in charge of it then, so I don't know, but if they're still doing it, might be worth looking into.
Mm-hmm.
Because they did it for cheap.
Let Pat know about that. Caught a lot of fish under that bridge.
Yeah, and that came about because of the flooding that year.
Yep.
You know, it washed out all the stuff. And it was
Yeah, come on.
precast and just came in and dropped it in.
I grew up there. That always flooded through there.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
That's how they get all the fuel oil and all the stuff from the garages lined up along the river down to Newmarket. Okay, anything else on this one? Bruce, we hear anything from the school?
I was gonna say, I don't think we're ready to use the Form Ds yet.
Okay.
We don't even have all our projects in yet.
Yeah.
And I think you need to have all your projects in before you can rate projects. You can't rate projects that aren't here yet.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that may put our schedule off by a meeting. When you look at the schedule, you'll see that we were supposed to begin rating this meeting, but it really has to be on August 6th, which kind of puts me behind in preparing the report, because I do want to hear I've heard several things that you want me to report tonight, but I guess I want to do the whiteboard thing.
Yeah.
get the bid statements. You will do your rating and ranking. I will recommend to you that you have that conversation about money that the voters would be acceptable to vote for, whether it's 400 or 500,000 for capital improvement projects for the coming year. And you may need to know whether or not the Board of Selectmen is amenable to using some of the unassigned fund balance again this year, as they have in the past 2 years, or not. If they're not, that final number might be smaller. And when you prioritize your projects, I don't know how many of them is off the top of my head, let's say there's 12 projects that are slated for implementation of construction this year, not the incremental saving down the line for equipment, but I'm talking about projects. And you prioritize those high, 1 to 12, whatever they are, when you add up the money, starting at priority 1 and get down to whatever it is, project 6 or project 8, and you're over that amount, the thing that you should recommend to the Board of Selectmen is, don't do projects 9 through 12 this year. Because it could queer the whole program. And that's really what I recommend to you. I know it might be painful. And that's one of the reasons why you rate projects, and then from the rating you get the ranking. And I will give you that sheet that I give you every year.
Yep.
We gotta do the rating and ranking first.
But we have to have all the projects in before we do any of it.
That is a problem. I mean, we may not have our report ready for the Board of Selectmen by September 4th. I don't know, if, your policy says that you should be submitting it right there at the beginning of September. That's your policy. The Board of Selectmen might give you a little slack. We might need 2 more weeks this year.
I would hope the Board of Selectmen would give you a couple weeks if needed. I would be in favor of it. I can't speak for the entire board, but I can speak for myself.
You get outvoted a lot.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I have one more thing that I think is very important to get on the record, and that is that you know the story. The story is that the planning board accepted an application for site plan revision for Mighty Joe to put in accessory units and amenities on this property within the existing campground. And you did that, and it was appealed by a number of the abutters. It went to the zoning board, as you know, on June 27th, and there were not enough members of the zoning board. So that meeting was tabled, and the public hearing was continued to their next meeting, scheduled for July 25th. At our, what meeting was that?
June 4th, sorry.
At our June 4th meeting, we necessarily, because the appeal came in, tabled that public hearing, waiting to see what would happen with the appeal. You tabled it to tonight.
Correct.
Only if it was denied.
And it wasn't heard.
Yeah.
So you tabled it tonight, and I failed to put the continued public hearing on this agenda. In a way, it's a moot point because you couldn't hear it anyway, and you would have had to table it again until after the zoning board makes their decision on whether to uphold the appeal or to deny the appeal. And if they uphold the appeal, you won't hear it anyway. If they deny the appeal, you would hear it. And I know there was a conversation at your previous meeting about when you would do that, but I don't think, and we need to look at listen to the tapes. I don't think you voted on it, but we're not sure. Where I failed was not putting a continued public hearing in to this agenda. I want to make sure that everybody hears this, and here's my suggested fix for this, and that is that tonight you table this again, even though it wasn't on the agenda, and you table it to the second meeting in August, and include in your motion that staff will send all the abutters notices again. Not necessarily return receipt, but notices by regular mail, so that everyone that's in a butter will know again when this will be heard, second meeting. So I'm suggesting that be a motion.
You want to make that motion?
I will make the motion that we, oh, Larry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Would you please indicate that this is done by courtesy rather than a failure under statute? Because I believe the chair of the committee still has the power in setting the agenda to bring any topic under their purview into the meeting under other business. Would the town planner wish to speak to that point?
And that's usually the case, but this was a public hearing. And we should have put it on the agenda as a continued public hearing. And that's, again, I guess I'm gonna take the hit for this one.
50 glasses with a wet noodle.
Yeah. Apologies don't help at this point. I'm just trying to make this as fair and expeditious as possible. Fair is making sure that we notify the abutters again. Expeditious is, if you do that motion, that tables the case and continues the public hearing to the second meeting in August, which is the third week, the third Tuesday in August. You could say that date, whatever it is, and include us, making us send those notices again.
However, the notices, if we're not going to hear it, will we know we're not going to hear it before the date for the noticing?
Right.
So
Theoretically, we'll know the day after July 25th.
because this is what we ran into before, is we had to pick a date. When we
Right.
table it, we have to pick a date.
Right.
23rd August?
And
So
you tabled
we-
it to
we did.
tonight.
We
and
picked
I
the
didn't
date.
Put it on the agenda. That's
But
what
we had no
that's what I
idea.
did wrong.
But then what we said was, provided we were going to hear it.
Well, you can't hear it because
No,
yeah.
So can we
Right.
just say 2 meetings after
So the next
it's
the next table
the zoning board
motion
hears it?
is for the second meeting in August,
Which is August 23rd?
which is the 20. What'd you say?
23rd.
23rd, 23 August.
Conditionally?
Well,
It'll have to be on the August 23rd agenda, so
Yes.
that everyone will know. It'll have to be posted. It'll have to be posted up on the board, you know, as per the statutory rules, and then you'll have to start the case, and if the zoning board upholds the appeal, then you will have to say this public hearing won't be heard. If you don't uphold the appeal, then you will hear it. You'll hear it and you'll have a public hearing.
right, but I'm thinking about the noticing. Going through the cost of noticing if we're not going to hear it.
I believe it has to be done.
Okay?
We will do it in regular first-class mail or not certified.
Okay.
We would send them regular postal mail, not return receipt.
All right. Well, that's
Don't
all
be
right.
confused. Let's start
Not
again.
to go backwards here, but I think Larry's point earlier was that we are currently meeting all statutory requirements as of today, and his point was just to make sure the town doesn't get in trouble. Did I understand that correctly? So I think he was asking that the board acknowledges that everything we're talking about is just for courtesy, but we are meeting statutory requirements.
He finally gets you, Larry. That is good. That was under 3 years.
All right, so how much more motion do I need?
I mean, I think your point is we weren't gonna hear it anyway, so it didn't really need to be on the agenda, which is probably why it wasn't put on the agenda, but that's not the right thing to do. I mean, I understand about statutory compliance, and you're actually going beyond. If you make that motion, make sure that staff sends all the abutters notices of when we may hear it again at the second meeting in August, then we're going beyond what we have to do.
All right. So, postpone till 23rd of August. And we will send notices,
He's trying to.
even though we're not necessarily required.
Courtesy notices.
Courtesy notice, yeah,
notices.
that's a
There you
better way
go.
to put that.
Yeah.
Courtesy notice.
Sound good?
Yeah,
By standard, man.
you're gonna vote on it, right?
I'm looking for a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Larry, no.
I'm impressed.
What?
That was good.
It's a different language, you know.
Well, I try to understand. I don't always, but I.
Bruce, you got any comments?
No.
How about approval of minutes of July 2nd, 2019?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes
Second.
as written.
I'll second.
I'll abstain.
I'll abstain.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Other business? Not hearing any? Who wants the honor
I'll make a
tonight?
motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
I did not get Form A beach thing. Does anybody have an extra beach improvements project that
I'm sorry.
they have submitted, Form A?